The air was thick with the heavy scent of roses mixed with the sharp edge of expensive cologne, overpowering my senses as I stood in the grand foyer of the estate, my heart racing at the sight before me. The chandelier above cast its cold, unforgiving light, illuminating the gaudy display of wealth that dripped from every corner of the room. It sparkled as if trying to pierce the very dimness of my thoughts, each crystal a reminder of the hollow luxury that surrounded me, a wealth built on years of sacrifices that had slowly suffocated my spirit. Today, the echo of laughter clashed against the soft strains of a string quartet, celebratory notes twining around me, creating a bittersweet symphony that felt like nails scraping against my heart. The music, once beautiful, now twisted like a knife, reminding me that the revelry around me was not for me but for her, the woman who had stolen my life. Guests, draped in silk and satin, swirled like currents of color around me, their voices a blend of shallow sympathy and feigned concern as they whispered between themselves. Yet my ears were tuned to one sound, a sharp metallic clink as a necklace dangled from his new partner's neck, an extravagant piece that was strikingly familiar, my own. That very piece had once adorned my neck, a gesture of love and commitment, now a mockery in the hands of the woman who had taken my place, quite literally wearing my legacy. I could almost taste the bitterness rising in my throat, each sip of champagne I had taken to calm the storm within me, souring with every glance at her perfectly manicured hands, twisting the delicate chain over and over again. The sweetness of the sparkling wine was lost to me, replaced by a heavy bitterness that lingered like a dark cloud swelling in a gathering storm. The ballroom was magnificent, dripping with opulence. Velvet drapes framed tall windows revealing an opulent garden trimmed to perfection, yet it felt like a gilded cage, and every bright laugh felt like a stab to my heart. They didn't know. They wouldn't ever know the depths of my loyalty, my devotion, and the ugly truth behind my husband's sudden departure from this moral coil. 12 years. 12 years of insomnia cradled in the embrace of a kitchen filled with the scent of burnt pasta as I worked countless overtime shifts, transforming a failing family business into what now stood before me, a shining beacon of success. The aroma of garlic and olive oil had mingled with the scent of my tears when I toiled late into the night, often sacrificing my enjoyment of life to elevate him. "I've got this," I would whisper into the phone, every late-night call sealing away my own dreams so that his could flourish. I was the silent engine, the quiet architect behind his lifestyle of yachts, travel, and luxury. There was no one who celebrated my contributions, no banners hoisted in my honor, only my reflection in the polished surfaces of glass and mirror, every sparkle a reminder of my defeat. A shudder passed through me, a cold sweat prickling at the nape of my neck. It was only a moment, a fragment of time, seconds stretched into eternity, before the haze pulled back, and I was drawn back to the present, to her wide smile that glistened as much as her borrowed jewelry. I was frozen, a dagger in my hand, both literal and figurative, my breath hitching. This was the moment, the pivotal second where I realized that my heart had been turned to ice. "Can you believe he left her everything?" one of the women murmured loudly, her voice dripping with sweet, poisonous envy. I turned, my eyes locking onto the face of the woman next to her, her lips curling in a self-satisfied grin, as if she had been waiting for this moment, this revelation. The mask had cracked wide open, the web of betrayal unfurling before me. Everything I had poured into him, into us, was crumbling to dust underneath the weight of this unwanted truth. In that moment, as I stood among the glittering crowd, I felt something surge inside me, a mix of rage and forlorn realization. My marriage had been a carefully constructed facade, supported by sacrifices that had cost me my joy and comfort, only to become the canvas for someone else's ascent. But the knife, they had forgotten about the knife. It gleamed in my palm, a tangible reminder of my own power concealed beneath layers of grief and rage. I could feel the cold steel against my skin, an anchor amidst the swirling chaos around me. "Let's cut the cake, shall we?" I dusted my palms together, shaking off the anger and hurt that threatened to pull me under. The crowd pressed closer, their excitement palpable as they gathered around the elegantly decorated table. It was draped in layers of white satin that shimmered under the light, adorned with delicate sugar flowers that looked too beautiful to taste. It was there, at that moment, in front of everyone they had deceived, including me, that I would wield my truth like a sword. I set the knife down, a heroic gesture toward the celebration of betrayal. I would make them all listen. As I stepped forward, the din of smooth jazz, muffled laughter, and the clinking of glasses faded into a hollow void. I cleared my throat, a sound that echoed with explosive certainty. "Ladies and gentlemen," my voice rang out, crystal clear, cutting through the tension like the blade just moments before. The anticipation in the air transformed into a tangible force. Their chatter dwindled to silence, and the expectation clung to the air thicker than the scent of expensive perfume. "I hope you're enjoying the festivities today, celebrating a life that was, well, let's say, less than honest." A ripple passed through the sea of faces. My husband's new partner, my heart clenched as I thought of her, shifted uncomfortably, her eyes darting toward the exit. My indignation fueled, I stepped forward, drawing the attention I had never wanted but now demanded. "While you've all been busy pretending that everything is as it seems, I have been living in the shadow of someone else's truth." The invisible chains that had bound me for years cracked open as I continued. For years, I sacrificed not just my comfort, but my very identity, feeding the machine that became his success. I turned my steely gaze toward him, a portrait of false absolution in the casket behind him, and then at the woman who had usurped me, her smile now plastered with fear. I set aside my dreams so that he could fly. "Damn you both for not seeing what you built was on my bones." Gasps echoed around the room, lips pressed together in shocked disbelief. I went on, "But as I stand before you, what you all seem to forget is that I hold the keys to his empire. I paid the mortgage for this oasis of deceit for 20 years, so good luck trying to evict me." A tangible silence enveloped the room, punctuated only by the faintest rustle of fabric as the women leaned toward each other, their eyes round like saucers, catching my words, absorbing the correctness of my indignation. The camera phone from a guest caught every detail as the narrative unfolded before their eyes, an unplanned coup that promised satisfaction in the midst of a storm. "If you want to see how this wife destroys the traitor, subscribe now," I whispered, a chilling finality in my tone as their reality shifted around them. This wasn't just a wake, it was a reckoning, and I was the architect of destruction. With a deep breath, I felt the adrenaline spike, my senses heightened, my heart pounding in quiet triumph. The stale sweetness of the champagne morphed into anticipation, energizing me for what was to come. I was done playing the part of the victim. I had built an empire, lived in the shadows, but now it was time to take my rightful place in the light. Through the thick clouds of betrayal that surrounded me, I had found my voice, my power, and finally, I was ready to reclaim what was mine. The aftermath of my declaration hung in the air like stagnant smoke, thick and suffocating, drifting through the vibrant chandeliers and extravagant blooms that adorned the ballroom where betrayal had unveiled itself. Indistinct murmurs wafted in waves around me, sharp whispers laced with disbelief and trepidation, each syllable a dagger, reminding me of the precarious cliff upon which I now stood. I was no longer the invisible woman in the marbled halls of my own existence. I had stepped into the light, and the brightness felt blinding. In the days following that pivotal moment, I clung tightly to that spark of power, but it flickered like a candle caught in a draft. As the funeral washed over me, an echo of sobs mixing with the rustle of black silk and aesthetics of sorrowful tribute, the facade of my life slowly resumed its place. The glaring eyes of our friends at the reception turned once again to indifferent sympathy, washing over me like the insincere tide that had always kept me at bay. Helplessness seeped into every crevice as I listened to them murmur hollow platitudes instead of addressing the truth either of us dared to confront. It was at that moment I felt a deepening salad of uncertainty blend with the heavy days that passed. I had expected support, camaraderie from the community I had so diligently nurtured, yet I found myself ensnared in a prison of my own making. Isolation grew like vines, wrapping tighter around me, squeezing away the confidence I had momentarily claimed. The night fell heavy and fragrant, the lingering scent of floral arrangements matched only by the sharp tang of my grief. I could hear muted conversations through the walls, punctuated by the clicking of glasses, as yet another gathering rolled into our home that felt foreign, even hostile. One by one, people I believed were friends arrived in their tailored suits and polished shoes, echoing hollow laughter between stirring memories that had been sculpted by months of pretense. My husband's jovial spirit loomed large among them, a ghost with a grin that now brought only fear and unease. "People are kind of freaking out about your revelation, you know." A voice broke through my gathering despair, clear and steady, cutting through the blur like a well-honed knife. It was Carla, my friend and confidant, a lawyer with a keen sense for the subtle betrayals of life and law. She leaned against the doorway, a silhouette against the dim light of the grand foyer, an unyielding shadow against the pulsing light of grief. I turned to her, my heart racing as I gestured the room beyond. "I'm not crazy, right? I mean, I know I did the right thing. I needed validation, clinging to the remnants of my sanity like a lifebuoy. I don't think you're crazy," she said slowly, her dark eyes assessing the chaos before us. "They don't want to believe what's true, because it makes them culpable too. You've built a reputation of loyalty and confronting the reality of betrayal. People don't know how to absorb that." The air felt taut around us, a frail membrane ready to shatter under the pressure. I could hear the distant clattering of ice against crystal. The sound seemed hollow, as if mocking me for wanting peace in the eye of the storm. "But," I began, my voice wavering, "what if he really did leave me nothing? What if everything I've worked for?" Carla stepped forward, her presence solid and empowering. "You have to gather your evidence. Bank statements, photos, old chats, anything that shows your ill-fated marriage wasn't just about him. Document everything. He might have wanted to establish that you were crazy, but you will show what a lie that was." A fervor ignited within me, a tiny ember yearning to blaze. I took a deep breath, absorbing her words like a lover's kiss on bitter lips. "I'll do it," I vowed, feeling the weight of desperation fuel my resolve. I need to reclaim what's mine. With that flicker of determination nestled firmly inside my chest, I turned inwards, levying all my senses toward the task that awaited me. Days morphed into weeks, and I submerged myself in a quiet war, honing my senses like a predator observing its environment before the hunt. Each morning, I awoke to the lingering scent of freshly brewed coffee, its deep, nutty aroma a solace against the tension pervading the fragile walls of our once happy home. I began to unearth forgotten artifacts of our life together, the fizz of newspaper clippings cut from magazines featuring him at lavish events, the soft rustling of real estate documents revealing every transaction that had slipped through my fingers like sand. My sanctuary, the study, once a collage of warmth and familial bliss, became an altar to my vengeance. The moment I stepped inside, I was transported by familiar notes, the rich texture of aged wood beneath my fingertips, the smell of leather-bound books whispering stories of triumphs both great and terrible, as if they were narrating my own tale. With each evening that passed, I painstakingly assembled the pieces of our lives, collating photographs that captured ephemeral smiles framed by time, each image now tinged with the bitterness of betrayal. The moments I once cherished, now turned into balls of fire that spiraled against the delicate canvas of my memories. I was history's witness, and, ironically, its writer. The initial rush of excitement at gathering proof soon transformed into a gnawing anxiety that echoed around me, becoming a weight similar to the way the heaviness had settled in my heart the night I discovered the truth. I cautiously entered our shared bedroom, light filtering through sheer curtains, casting soft patterns that danced across the room like secrets longing to be told. As I scoured through old jewelry boxes, hastily crammed full of trinkets and discarded love letters, the air felt charged, dark, oily whispers crawling behind my skin. I staggered as I pulled at one of the drawers facing the edge of the bed, fingertips brushing against the cool metal of my husband's cufflinks. They glinted menacingly under the weak light, a reflection of the life he lived that was never meant to be shared. "You're not losing your mind," Carla had reassured me. Yet in those quiet moments alone, fragments of doubt weaved their way into my heart, reframing my reality. What if I was merely grasping at threads, weaving an elaborate fiction in the hopes of avoiding the chaos I had been left with? What if my husband's death had unraveled something in the fabric of reality that would cease to allow me to reclaim? I gathered strength in Carla's voice reverberating through my thoughts, remembering her presence anchoring me to truth. As night fell deeper, dewy and cradled in shadows, I approached my task with laser focus, pushing back against the nagging edge of doubt. I needed to parse my emotions, filter them through the jagged lens of truth. Old receipts painted a story vivid enough even for the blind. Until I sat cross-legged in the center of our bedroom floor, bank statements strewn about me like fallen leaves from the richest of trees. Each figure, each transaction blurred the lines between deceit and reality. The phone buzzed beneath my pile of remnants as I broke the steady rhythm of my mindfulness, making my chest tighten. It was a text from an unrecognized number. "I know you're looking for something, but I can help you. Meet me tonight, alone. There's more you need to know than you think." All the instances I had dismissed mental flags. Flashes of confrontations when I was told I was merely overreacting, when panicked over not seeing lines of credit where I expected. At that moment, I realized I had walked the fine line between paranoia and reassurance. Was this a ploy veiled in sincerity, or the tricks of shadows that danced in darkness? Exhaustion whispered sweetly into my thoughts, urging me to ignore the summons, yet the thrill of mystery snaked through my veins like fire. That night, a madness laced with betrayal hovered in the dusky twilight as I prepared myself, a clandestine spy roaming the alleys of my own life. I felt the weight of resilience band around me, twisted like roots anchoring a sapling, trembling against the tremors of the unknown. I would gather my army, and I would fight back, perhaps not in the way armies normally did, but with the weapons I possessed against the deceit woven into my life. Tomorrow held more questions, more confrontations, and slowly, a reckoning that would ignite the warnings I'd chosen to ignore for too long. The night was young, shrouded in depths unknown, and my heart raced with both fear and anticipation of what would come next. The day of the event dawned with a tension that coiled tightly in my chest, a reminder of the powerful storm brewing beneath the surface of my carefully constructed facade. It was a warm afternoon, sunlight spilling through the tall glass windows of the venue, an extravagant banquet hall that had the distinct scent of fresh lilies mingling with the savory aroma of gourmet hors d'oeuvres wafting from the kitchen. The air crackled with excitement and laughter as guests filtered in, oblivious to the storm I was about to unleash, an execution masquerading as a celebration. I had orchestrated this gathering under the guise of a memorial dinner for my husband, a chance for all his friends and allies, those who had feigned concern during our years together, to come together and toast to his memory. In their comfortable attire of tailored suits and elegant dresses, they buzzed with chatter, their voices dancing together like champagne bubbles rising in crystal flutes. But beneath their laughter lay an undercurrent of unease. A shiver traced its way down my spine as I noted a few lingering glances directed my way, some laced with curiosity, others tinted with thinly veiled disdain. Tables adorned with vibrant white tablecloths resembled fields of wild daisies and peonies, cheerfully set up to distract from the dark undertones of our shared history. Each intricate arrangement of flowers cast a sweet spell over the room, weaving a deceptive atmosphere filled with unearned joy. As I stepped into the thrumming heart of the gathering, I could feel the texture of the unyielding wooden floor beneath my heels, each step anchoring me deeper into my resolve. The walls, painted a soft cream, seemed to close in slightly, encasing me in a cocoon of mischief as I mentally prepared the unveiling of my truth. Standing behind the microphone, I could hear the distant echoes of laughter, the soft clinking of glasses, even the harmonious strings from a small ensemble tucked away in the corner. It would have all been a sweet orchestra, if it weren't for the gut-wrenching betrayal pulsing through my veins, setting me on fire from the inside out. I touched the cool metal of the microphone in front of me, a chill spiraling through my fingertips, as I looked out at the faces illuminated in the soft glow of chandeliers that hung like bloomed stars above. "Thank you all for coming," I finally said, my voice shaking slightly, betraying the whirlwind of emotions raging within. I cleared my throat, the sound reverberating around me, echoing against the gilded walls, and felt the room freeze in anticipation. As we gather here to celebrate the life of someone who has touched us all, I think it's only fitting to reflect on the truth, one that I believe we all deserve to hear. Those words lingered momentarily in the air, thick and heavy, and I could see eyebrows raise among the crowd, curiosity flaring like a spark. I pictured the moment when every piece I had gathered would tumble into place, shattering the carefully curated image they held of him, of us. I would not just find closure. I would take back the power that had been wrenched from me so callously. The murmurs began to ripple through the crowd, tentative like the rustle of leaves on a fragile autumn evening. Lifting my chin, I infused my voice with strength. "We often celebrate great men without understanding the shadows they cast," I continued. letting every eye focus on me, swallowing the constant pulse of gathering momentum. And today, I'd like to shed light on the fact that I stood by his side for 20 years. A delicate pause drifted in the air as I leaned into the moment, the tension thickening as I pulled forth the evidence I had meticulously organized. A single, unassuming envelope from my coat pocket that seemed to contain the very essence of my struggle. With a gentle flick, I opened it, feeling the cool thickness of the papers inside. For 2 decades, I poured my heart, my soul, my very being into our life. I sacrificed my dreams, my peace, my happiness, all for his success to blossom. Gasps engulfed the room, a sudden airflow of disbelief sweeping through the crowd like a gust of wind shaking the last vestiges of fall from the trees. I could hear the faintest rustle, eyes widening, drinks freezing mid-pour as I slowly unfurled the documents that chronicled our once cherished life together. What you see here, I held them aloft for all to witness, is the proof of my sacrifices, mortgages I've paid, properties we've acquired in my name, business investments I dedicated my entire being to, only to be disregarded by the man I loved. My misplaced trust. The weight of my statements hung palpably in the air, thickening like smoke, filling the room until it darkened with realization. I watched as disbelief morphed into disgust, his closest allies now painstakingly re-evaluating their loyalty, their faces twisting into masks of unease upon hearing not just the words escaping my lips, but the implications that hung in the air around them like a dark cloud of impending doom. As cheers of sympathy turned into hushed whispers, I leaned forward, the soft silk of my dress cascading against the cool wooden surface of the podium. I am the reason this beautiful establishment exists, I continued, letting the realization imbue the atmosphere. For the nights I toiled endlessly, while he reveled in the glow of accolades, completely unaware of the cost behind our lifestyle. Every inch of this venue, every glass you hold in your hand, was paid for with my heartbreak. And the facade shattered. A crisp, mirroring sound that could be heard echoing across the walls, laced with shock and fear. My husband's partner, a woman I had once considered a friend, stood frozen, the color draining from her face, as the weight of my words pressed heavily on the room. The evidence I had curated became my sword, a lifeline to my dignity. I cannot begin to express the betrayal I felt as I watched those I called friends play a part in this charade, lifting my husband high while only realizing I stood, as I often did, still in the shadows. But today, those shadows are gone, and here is the proof of my strength. I whipped out a series of photographs that captured candid moments of shared joy warped by betrayal. A Christmas gathering where he held her hand, laughter marking lines in their faces, while mine faltered under the insipid glare of neglect. Gasps turned into outright murmuring as the evidence blossomed, laid bare like wounds I had carried deep within me for too long. You thought you could sidestep the truth and slip back into the comfort of indifference, didn't you? But look, I thrust the photographs forward, shoving them into the light until the strings of laughter between the two figures in the images were reframed, the joyful expressions now reconstructed as memories ripe with artifice. The responses morphed slowly, eyes darting uneasily around the room, looking for reassurance in familiar faces but finding only disbelief. A collective horror rippled through the crowd, and whispers echoed in confusion. Too late did they realize the trap I had set. None could disentangle the web of deceit I had carefully orchestrated. I took a deep breath, allowing the emotion to well up inside me, empowering my next statements as I leaned closer to the microphone. Today is not simply about goodbyes or false memories. It is about truth. It is about reclamation. My voice rang through the room, a clarion call resonating with the spirit anchoring me. It is about exposing betrayal entwined in deceit, and demonstrating that I am far more than a mere side note in someone's story. The shame hung over the crowd, each person grappling silently with their part, the whispers growing dangerously similar to a chaotic tide. Regret dawned on their faces like a new sun, painfully rising in the aftermath of their unforgivable actions. "Would you have waited this long?" I asked, my heart racing as I relinquished control of the narrative to them, letting the floating question linger heavily in the charged atmosphere, feeding on their uncertainty and guilt. Their murmured confusion threatened to drown out the warmth around me. What had begun as a somber memorial had morphed into something infinitely more relevant, a revelation that would echo through their lives long after today. As the murmurs subsided, I allowed myself a moment to bask in the feelings cascading around me, a reclaiming of my power, a phoenix emerging from the ashes of betrayal. I had become more than a mere shadow. I was the architect of my survival, fortified by the reckoning I had unleashed with every word and gesture. The evening flowed with complications and revelations, a new serenity blossoming in the air, every slice of deceit cut deeper as the masks slipped, unveiling both the whispers and the shame that had encased us all. And in that dazzling array of vulnerability, I discovered what it meant to be wholly alive amid the wreckage. It was just the beginning of the unraveling, a reckoning not simply for my husband, but for every person who had failed to see the truth before them, ignoring the tapestry of gray woven intricately within shades of trust and betrayal. The irony settled sweetly within me as the pieces rearranged themselves. This had been my unwanted encore, a message of truth that would resonate far longer than the final note of their hollow laughter. The clock ticked steadily in the hushed stillness that enveloped my home, a rhythmic pulse against the quiet assurance that had slowly begun to fill the void left by my husband's death. Each tick was a gentle reminder of the time that had elapsed since I had shattered the myth of our life together, my voice still echoing like a battle cry through the halls of this once dreary monument to betrayal. Secrets, I had come to learn, are a heavy burden for the unethical to bear, and ruins are often built not on stone, but on the fragile hopes of others. 6 months had passed since that turbulent night when I stood before a crowd of acquaintances, misfits, and distant friends, revealing layers of deception that had long lay parched like dead leaves, crumbled at the roots of a beautiful tree. The air surrounding me had shifted, no longer thick with the dust of neglect. Now, it thrummed with the sweet sound of freedom, a song sung distinctly by my renewal. The taste of liberation was rich, as liberating as the aromatic coffee that brewed each morning, a deep and dark elixir rising like the phoenix from ashes. My triumph tasted like melted chocolate, indulgent and velvety, grounding me in this burgeoning reality, bursting with possibilities. I reveled in the new lightness of being, having emerged from the shadows that had pinned me to the floor, a cherub set free amidst the burgeoning blooms of spring. My appearance transformed as well. I felt rejuvenated, each brushstroke of makeup a gentle caress against my skin, each fashionable dress tailored snugly across my body reflecting a confidence I had never possessed before. The hours spent in front of the mirror became sanctuary moments, my reflection shining back at me with a smile that felt content, a contrast to the frowning ghost that had existed before. At the same time, in stark contrast to my blossoming rebirth, the impending fallout among my husband's companions unfurled like an impending storm, with whispers of misfortune swirling ominously in the air. I've learned that even in rest, darkness flickers in the shadowy corners where tempests are brewing, and the masked truths of acquaintances reveal themselves to be fragile. The news filtered to me through delicate threads, as tangibles often do, through friends of friends, neighbors who gathered at coffee shops. I savored the stories. My husband's mistress, that beautiful imposter who had once stolen my heart's place, now stood shivering without cover. It took mere weeks for the once celebrated wildflower to wither once the allure of my husband's wealth dried up. The mutual dependency that had tethered their lives together became shackles of despair when money ran thin as raindrops in a summer drought. Rumor spiraled that she had fled city limits, a ghost of her former confidence, a fraying silk string pulled taut, forgotten by the very man who had cast her into the sun. Pity was absent from my heart for her. I had watched her silhouette through the windows of my life, swathed in deception and disinterest. The way she had looked at me during those thinly veiled moments of contact, the malice hidden behind feigned warmth, but now she simply faded into the background noise, a piece of flotsam cast upon the jagged rocks of consequences. Meanwhile, my husband's remaining friends found their coffers emptied. The taste of camaraderie turned bitter, as the swell of community turned into a sea of loneliness. Those who had called themselves allies dismissed my claim, insisting my revelations had been mere fabrications, but their denial felt hollow, each denial an echo of their own collapsing self-worth. I heard through the grapevine that his best friend had lost his job, grappling with the fallout of an ill-conceived investment in a failing startup he had coerced others to join, while another had turned to the bottle, drowning his sorrow amidst empties that filled the cabinets of his estate. As I strolled by the cafe down the block where laughter once echoed joyfully, every clink of silverware against porcelain felt like reminders of what had been lost. The tables that had housed laughter were now heavy with murmurs of hopelessness, voices laced with regret, dancing like phantoms on the edges of my consciousness. My heart beat in slow, steady strokes as I moved past their shadowy figures' orbs in the failing light. They looked up sometimes, eyes as wide as saucers, disbelief painted starkly on their features. It was an intoxicating power to bear, the knowledge of my life soaring effortlessly while their world crumbled like old parchment cast to the wind. Throughout these months, I didn't silently revel in their misfortune. Rather, I chose a different path, the one lined with empathy, interwoven through my revitalization. I began to meet them eye for eye, no longer wilting under pressure as before. Rather, I approached each encounter with the knowledge that I had earned my strength. My laughter became a melodic reprieve, a bridge that allowed connectivity even across the chasms of pain. I dove into rebuilding connections, networking, and observing the landscape emerging all around me. Piece by piece, I started piecing together a new life, a mosaic woven with tenderness and audacity, stitched with bright colors that painted over faded patches sown with uncertainty. Months of sleepless nights and silent sacrifices bore fruit as the family's business began thriving beyond anyone's expectations. My hands were nimble, feeling each turn of the wheel upon which our dreams collectively sat. With newfound vigor, I strategically located resources, optimizing finances, moving through the cracks where light danced amidst the shadows. I hired individuals passionate about bustling businesses and immense creativity, eager minds driven towards common goals. The once hollowed shell of my place became a sanctuary of shared ambitions, and as I walked through those halls, scented by the delightful buzzing of ambition alongside wafts of brisk espresso, laughter began to echo once more. My rise was not merely financial. My surroundings became symmetrical reflections of the person I was becoming. I replaced stark walls with warm hues that cradled echoes of bright laughter, greeted each morning clad in radiant sunlight flowing through pastel drapes. The kitchen bubbles with excitement, enveloped in warm fragrances of homemade pastries, flavors blooming into the early hours of dawn. My sanctuary where joy took form. The peeling wallpaper of disillusion faded along with every tear I had shed, as fresh paint transformed the essence of everything, arousing vitality in every corner. In this rebirth came friendships that thrived in the scree of desperation, women who had walked similar paths, each with fractured histories, and shadows casting their light onto the newfound sisterhood we cultivated. Within failure, we found power, understanding that the roots of our history provided depth to our shared stories. We'd begin planning retreats, gatherings under moonlit gardens, laughter resounding in nervous flutters beneath the stars. These evenings, thick with warmth, fostered a sense of belonging, a solidarity that reshaped lives once thought lost. One evening, as I gazed out over the vast landscape of our newly flourishing enterprise, an exhilarating mixture of excitement and anticipation whirred through me. It was only when I inadvertently glanced at the family estate's address, emblazoned brightly on my laptop screen, that a moment of stillness wove through the buoyant air. It had once harbored loss, its heaviness now lifted like mist off a tranquil lake, revealing endless possibilities blossoming upon the horizon. The echoes of betrayal faded softly, like whispers carried away by a gentle breeze, leaving behind a proof of something sacred, that amidst every heartbreak lay freedom, a transient truth shaping the very essence of resilience. Henceforth, I would forever acknowledge that darkness does not negate the presence of light, that within the bitter perfume of loss blooms the sweetest flowers of existence. As dusk encroached upon the day's labors, I couldn't help but reflect upon the journey that had seemingly begun ages ago, when I was merely surviving, trapped in a loveless marriage, enveloped by shadows. Now I reveled in the illuminated promise of tomorrow, knowing its potential lay not in the fabric of fortune, but in my own spirit and determination. And in that final embrace of the evening, as the sun dipped below the horizon, I smiled for the first time with conviction, eager to unveil the next chapter ahead. If you think this was intense, I thought, a soft chuckle escaping my lips, just wait until you hear the shocking story of the time my new venture led to a heels-over-head confrontation with my husband's old business partner. with secrets that could shatter more than just my brand. The unexpected in store is bound to leave you breathless. With my heart thrumming to a newfound rhythm, I closed the laptop with a soft click, knowing my tale was far from over. The next revelation loomed large, a canvas awaiting the brushstrokes of courage and uncertainty, each stroke epitomizing the vividness of life itself.